Okay, so this is my video for the IB Theater project where we had to research a devised theater company. So the name of the company I researched was Gecko Theater Company, and they are based out of Suffolk, England. And as for their mission or goal as a company, I found this quote from the founder. His name is Amit Lahav, and it says, because he's referring to the other co-founder, we wanted to arrest our audience's imagination, awaken their senses, and fill them with energy and vitality. So that's the general goal of this company, is to not only entertain, but they do it in a very creative way, as I will go into. So as for what kind of devised theater they do typical shows. However, there is little to no dialogue. So the lack of there's typically no dialogue at all in their shows, but there will be a few words sometimes. And the lack of presence of dialogue causes for there to be a lot of physical theater aspects and a lot of sound design. So their shows tend to be kind of abstract, but in order to convey day-to-day things. So I thought that was very interesting. All of their shows are very cool, and their work is just inspired by things that are typically right in front of us. They have one show about memories. They have one show just about relationships between different races, which I'm going to show an example of. They had a show called The Arab and the Jew a few years ago, and this is an example of how they used physical theater and sound effects. So these two men, one is the Arab, one is the Jew, are having an argument, but because there is no dialogue in these shows, I just thought it was really interesting what they did instead. So in that last part, they weren't actually speaking, they were just making some inaudible sounds. But what I thought was very interesting is how they used gunshot and like banging sound effects in place of fighting words and like argument. I thought it was very symbolic, and I think it was maybe even more powerful than using dialogue. I mean, we always hear like words hurt, but I think replacing hurtful words with actual things that hurt us was a very interesting replacement. And yes, so as you kind of saw, not as much in that one, but their shows are very abstract, but they are abstract in a way that is to help us better understand a simple happening. Okay. So after researching their company and seeing how creative they are with how they compose their shows, it made me more interested in exploring how else I can make devised theater, or other ways that other theater companies can make their own devised theater, because of course devised theater can be anything because you create it. But typically when I think of, oh, let's make a show, I just think of a typical dialogue typed up on a piece of paper, a cast of girls and boys with fitting costumes and normal physicality. And just the possibilities are so endless, and I know that's kind of cliche to say, but I've never seen anything like that. I've seen some abstract forms of theater, maybe just like interpretive dance kind of. But in this, they're not really trying to just focus on physical. They're trying to have an actual dialogue, but they're having a dialogue without words, and it works. I don't know. So yeah, I think in the future, when I am working with more devised theater, I want to see how else I can change the typical mold of how I think of theater, because there's so many possibilities. And watching just even that video, I was thinking, oh, how can I take something out or replace something in what I typically think of when it comes to theater? And I was reading a review of one of their shows called Missing, and Missing was just about the effect memories have on us, and I watched a few clips of it, and it's very cool. And then this is from a legitimate theater critic. It's thegoodreview.co.uk, and I looked it up, and it's a very highly looked at reviewer in the United Kingdom, and it received 5 out of 5 stars. And the last paragraph of the entire review says, "What is so unique about this production is their ability to tell a life story with such detail and accuracy. The piece is ever moving and in constant flux, but the audience is able to read whatever they want into the images created, and the gifts a really personal and individual story in their hands. And it also says in the middle that there were many clever technical elements which added to the performance. So their use of tech is really interesting, and I was a lighting and sound designer for the 24-hour play festival, and I kind of just didn't get that creative with it, but this made me want to do tech again or have some more tech experiences so I can be more creative with just designing, because their entire show really revolves around choreography and tech, because we always think about costumes and dialogue, and their costumes are not the focus of the show, and there's no dialogue at all. So I just think it's very cool how important they made tech and technical aspects in their shows. And also what I really like about the company is that their pieces are meaningful. They are not meant just to entertain, even though they are of course supposed to be entertaining. They're also supposed to be impactful, because what they're doing is so different, and the topics they focus on are quite deep most of the time, and sometimes it's not easy to tell what's deep about them, but like they make you think. And when I was involved in the value show, that's one thing I was really interested in, because it is something that's in front of us every day, values in our minds, but it was being portrayed in a way that was so creative but yet so accurate, I believed. So yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed looking up this theater company. It is very interesting to me. It made me think a lot more about the possibilities devised theater has. And yeah, I would recommend looking them up because their stuff is super cool.